Hey guys, what's up? So, how do you know if something is good or bad or right or wrong? In a previous video, I talked about not letting other outside influences affect um, you and your expression of you and, sort of guide your life. You're letting all of these things outside of yourself control you and really um, a lot of them maybe you're not even aware of, and some of them maybe you can't even get away from once you are aware of them. But we have these lists of rules, whether it be the church or the government or whatever, that sort of say, this is, you have to line up here in this particular way. Okay, so but beyond that, how do you tell if something is good or not? If you're someone who wants to take control of your life and you say, well, I don't want to live by these rules of the church, or I don't want to live by the rules of society, or I want to question these things, how can I know if something is good or if something isn't good? And the way that I do it is basically I look at the consequences or the results of whatever the action is to decide whether this thing is good or bad or somewhere in between. And real quick, most people sort of have this sort of objective. Let me rephrase that. Not most people. There are a lot of people who have a very objective view of morality where the world is mostly black or white. So, things, good versus evil, basically, right? And there's very little gray, if there's any gray, and a lot of these are like religious people or really hardcore conservative people, even, I would say people on the left are there's probably some people on the left that are like this, but they're probably more, the liberal tends to be more morally gray, I guess you would say. So I used to be very black and white with my morality, and I was very self-righteous about it. And then as I've gotten older and I've gotten wiser and I've kind of like, just had more experiences, I've realized that the majority of of things in the world that we would call moral are morally gray. Like almost everything is morally gray. There are a few things that are just morally reprehensible and bad that you could say are bad, and there's some that are good, but there's very few of those. Most everything falls on this sort of spectrum in the middle. This gray spectrum in the middle, basically. So what's good for one person may not be good for another person, and what's bad for this person may not be bad for that person. Okay, and these are just truth. This is just true things. And, it seems to be that the more you look for truth, the more you find these kind of things, and the more you get away from this sort of dogmatic approach of, well, it says, in this book, or it says in this list that this is wrong. How many conservative Christians believe that murder is wrong? Right? All of them? I would say most people believe that murder is wrong. I may not be one of those. There may be circumstances where murder is absolutely justified. I would have to think about it a little bit, but I'm not going to just sign up and say murder absolutely is wrong. I know that probably sounds weird, but most people would say murder is wrong, okay? Maybe I would call it justified killing or something. But there are a lot of conservative Christians who think that murder is wrong, yet were pro-Iraq war, pro-Afghan war, pro-war in general, pro-Israel Hamas or Israel Gaza. I don't know all the damn cults out there, but you kind of see what I'm saying? Is like murder is wrong. Murder is objectively wrong, except when we do it. Right. Okay. So we live in a world where, people can say that one thing, that something is wrong, yet completely act in another way, which totally invalidates that. So if you look and you search for truth, and you eventually you're going to mature and you're going to realize that, hey, actually these black and white things are not so black and white. So how do I tell if something's good? How do I tell if something's bad? It all has to do with the results of the thing, right? So, and the way that I think about it is like a cumulative results, okay? Not just one time, but like a result over time, a cumulative thing. So you could say, for example, something like drug use, okay? And of course, we'd have to define what drug use is or what a drug is. But let's just say, let's just pick one. Let's say marijuana, right? Marijuana is a very popular drug, and it's a pretty, in most cases, probably pretty benign drug, right? I've smoked a lot of pot in my life. I haven't in years, but I have before, so I can speak on it. Smoking pot, okay, isn't inherently wrong. There's nothing inherently wrong with it, right? If you smoked a joint, say, that's not an inherently bad behavior. What makes it, or could potentially make it bad, would be the sort of side effects or the results of doing it. So say, for example, if you were, and this is the same for gambling. I think I had a gambling example in a different video, but if the smoking of the pot, that sounds funny. The smoking of the pot, if it caused you to, say, neglect your family, or if it caused you to, go broke, or if it caused you, this is one that's pretty freaking common, if you smoked it every day and it caused you to basically lose all ambition for life. Like, that's probably the biggest one, and probably a pretty big one for me. I'd have to think about it, but that people, it's sort of like the pothead trope, right? Like the guy, he just smokes pot, and that's, and he kind of, like, whatever ambitions he had in his life, they sort of go out the window because he just wants to get high. Now, we can talk about why you shouldn't smoke psychologically, or maybe rephrase that, why you shouldn't. I hate the damn word should. I think should be gotten rid of. Should be gotten rid of, shouldn't it? But we could say, I could tell you why you're smoking. I could say, I know why you're smoking. Okay, but we'll save that for another video. But you could see how smoking pot in itself, smoking a joint, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's what it would cause, right? Now, there could be situations where you'd smoke a joint and be totally fine and not cause any danger at all. Maybe you are, a comedian or something, and you smoke a joint before you sit down to write, or some sort of creative thing like a painter or something, and it helps you to, like, express yourself more in your artistic area. Okay, that might be a good use of it, And obviously there's medicinal uses. We're not going to get into that. But you could do the same with alcohol. So, is having a beer, is that necessarily a bad thing? No. But what if you're drinking every day, and you're drinking, like, lots of it every day? Well, not only is that probably going to negatively affect your relationships, but and your job, it's certainly going to negatively affect your health. Okay, so you could say that, drinking a beer in itself is not bad, but drinking a lot of beer all the time would be, or alcohol, any kind of alcohol. And the same for pot. But it could be anything, right? It could be something that might be inherently good. Like, what about working out, right? Working out, can be good for you. But if it becomes an obsession, it isn't. So you try to, like, think about, it's not the act itself that's good or bad. It's really the results and what happens afterward, whether that's bad or not. And this is how this is how you find immorality. This is all the gray area. It's like, well, most Christians would probably say that smoking pot and drinking alcohol is wrong or bad, at least Protestant Christians, right? But the act itself isn't bad. It's not bad. It wouldn't be bad for you to have a drink of wine with dinner. But if you drank a whole bottle of wine every night, that could become a problem, right? So let me see if I can think of another example that wouldn't be something so sort of arbitrary. What is a bad thing? I'm trying to think of something that isn't too heavy. um, Oh man, okay. Well, this one I hope I don't want to make this video too long, but we could say that manipulating people is bad. Okay. Um, and we could agree that if you're manipulating, say for example, if you're grooming someone to do something that would be bad, because of this accumulation of instances, right? But, what is an influencer? What is a YouTube influencer? What is or a social media influencer? Influencer. To influence you. In a way, it's the same thing as to manipulate you to believe something, right? No one thinks that manipulating their kids into, I don't know, washing their hands, cleaning their room, saying yes sir and no ma'am and thank you and please. Nobody thinks that those are bad things, but those are also a form of manipulation, right? So this is an area where there are some manipulations that are bad because you see what the results are, but then there's some that aren't, right? I mean, we want our kids to wash their hands, right? Because of germs, right? Like, duh. We want them to get along in society, and that's important. I'm sort of in this area where it's like, well, what is the difference between, how do you maintain your sense of self while also being able to function in society? Now, I don't have the answer to that yet. I'm still, maybe that's for a later video, but anyway, I just want you to kind of think about and understand that morality isn't just so simple, right? It's not just good and bad or good and evil, black and white. It's just not. It's mostly gray. Now, can I think of some examples that, real quick, that are that definitely are bad or definitely are good? I think, definitely a bad would be something like rape. I hate to say that word, but so what? That's like you're using force to force someone to, either violence or threat of violence to force someone to do something against their will. That's bad. I can't think of a single instance where forcing someone to do something against their will like that would be positive. Can't think of a single area where that would be positive. Now, can I think of something that would be always good? I think something like, what do you call it? Unconditional love for somebody. All right, this is something that's extremely rare because most love is conditional. Whether we want to admit it or not, most love is conditional. I love my children, but would I still love them if they were trying to kill me every day? I don't know. I hope that's never the case, but like I love my wife, but would I love my wife if she went out and whored around, slept with every man she could find, and badmouthed me and ruined my life and left me broke in the street? Would I still love her? You see what I'm saying? Like, even God's love is conditional upon commandments and right action, right? And that's a pretty controversial thing to say, is, in a Christian realm at least, for God so loved the world, Yeah, but love's conditional, right? It really is. I mean, you could just save everybody. And maybe that's actually the truth of it. I don't know. I mean, gosh, that's a whole nother can of worms that we could get into in a different video. But anyway, the point of this is just there's um, there's very little things that you could say this is absolutely good and right, and this is absolutely wrong, bad, evil. Because most things are sort of in the middle. They're on the spectrum, on this gray spectrum, and it's really about what the action, thought leads to. What does it lead to? What are the results of it? And that's where you find whether the thing is good or not. It's the long term. Is this good for me? Is this good for my relationships or the other people that I know? Is this good for society? And that's how you know whether or not something is good or bad. Is like that, and it's not from some list, and it's not certainly isn't black and white in 99.9% of the cases.